Good evening, and you are listening to CHAYIL podcast, and I am your host, CHAYAH Janet E. Brown. And tonight's episode, I am very excited about it. I done got tongue twisted and everything trying to get this together. But we are on the fourth in the session, the summer scripture session, and we are in number 4. We have one more session, and then that will complete this series for the summer series. Yes, I will be having it for the fall and also for the winter, and then back to the spring, and we're going to do it all over again. So doing these particular sessions, I like to pick up different topics to talk about from the normal schedule. So I just took 5 particular episodes and do something different. So tonight is going to be on women of faith. And of course, we know that there are a ton of examples of women of faith. And one in particular I am going to be looking forward to doing is going to be on Miriam, the mother of Yahushua. And we also know her name is translated as Mary, and want to talk about her. But tonight we're going to be talking about something different, and on these 5 sisters. And these 5 sisters are the daughters of Zelophehad. And their father was a just man. He was a good father from what I could tell. But he had passed. And so there were some things that had taken place, and these daughters had went and petitioned Moses and Eleazar, the priests and the chieftains and the whole assembly at the entrance of the tent of meeting, for their right to inherit his property in the land of Israel. So they had came up with an exceptionable argument. We're going to also look and follow in how Abba had divinely was orchestrating this. So we're going to find out about the grievance of Zelophehad's daughters, and also about the laws of inheritance and how it changed, and how these women of faith caused it to change. And we're going to learn a little bit about their character and the type of women that they were, and some other key points I'm going to try to emphasize while I'm speaking on it. But I'm very excited about this, and I just couldn't wait to get to tell you all about this. So we are ready. We have everything. Let's begin. Good evening. This is CHAYIL's podcast, and tonight's episode is on women of faith. We're going to be coming from scripture in Numbers, the 27th chapter, 1 to 11. And what is interesting about this is that this has to do with 5 sisters and the courage to go against a law that was in their time. And so this is what tonight's episode is going to be about. And I had to really admire these 5 sisters, the 5 daughters of Zelophehad. And that the whole issue came about, it was about after his death. So I'm going to start with this prayer, and I'm going to get right into this. Abba, thank you for such a time as this, that you have called me to minister unto your people and to deliver this word. And Father, that they will be able to glean bountifully from this field. And I thank you that I take every spirit in the hearing of my voice under my control, and no other spirit except that of the Ruach HaKodesh will be allowed to speak or manifest during this time of ministry. Thou angels that thou hast given unto me, my troops during this warfare shall cover me, and be deployed by me in battle to warfare as directed as it is your will. They are fully armored in all areas, and so am I, as you have made it so. Those that have an ear to hear what thus saith Yehovah receive full portions, the message from heaven's throne room. A hedge of protection shall be upon us during this session and upon the conclusion of this session of ministry. No repercussions, demonic attacks, thoughts, words of non-life, chants, spells shall not have no effect upon me, his vassal, and unto the people who hear. No weapons formed and that have been formed against us, they shall not prosper. And no enemy, mentally, physically, or spiritually, shall get to us during this session. That I shall be restored fully in faith, health, thought, and ready to receive the next bounty, unto which shall be distributed upon your people and those seeking you. For we are girded with your faith, belief, strength, your favor, grace, mercy, love, and your covering. So shall the words be that go forth out of my mouth. They shall not return unto me void, but they shall accomplish that which pleases Abba, and shall prosper in the things whereto they have been sent. Abba, glorify thy name. Scripture is from Numbers 27, 1 to 11. I am determined. I'm really pondering if I should go ahead and read the scriptures or just go ahead and let me read it. It'd be better. The daughters of Zelophehad, son of Hepher, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, and the families of Manasseh, son of Joseph, drew near. And these are the names of his daughters: Mahlah, Noah, Haglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moshe, before Eleazar, the Kohen, and before the leaders and the entire assembly at the entrance of the tent of meeting, saying, Our father died in the wilderness, but he was not among the assembly that was gathering against Yehovah in the assembly of Korah, but he died of his own sin, and he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be omitted from among his family, because he had no son? Give us a possession among our father's brothers. And Moshe brought their claim before Yehovah. And Yehovah said to Moshe, The daughters of Zelophehad speak properly. You shall surely give them a possession of inheritance among the brothers of their father, and you shall cause the inheritance of their father to pass over to them. And to the children of Yisrael you shall speak, saying, If a man will die and he has no son, you shall cause his inheritance to pass over to his daughter. If he has no daughter, you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, you shall give his inheritance to the brothers of his father. If there are no brothers of his father, you shall give his inheritance to his relative who is closest to him of his family, and he shall inherit it. This shall be for the children of Yisrael as a decree of justice, as Yehovah commanded Moshe. That is the reading of Numbers, the 27th chapter, 1 to 11. We know of many strong women of faith in Scripture, in the Torah, such as Hannah, 1 Samuel 1. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord, 1 Samuel 1:28. Hannah was barren. She wanted a son, but Yehovah had not granted her one. Her womb was closed. She begged him for a child. In return, she promised to dedicate this young man. And she already knew what she was precise in the gender of the child that she wanted. She dedicated this young man to his service. Her son was born, and she followed through on her promise. She took the child to the prophet Eli and the priest and left him to be raised in the temple. Eli the priest, and left him to be raised in the temple. She continued to have influence over the boy's life through the years. Her son grew up to be Samuel, a prophet, one of most influential and godly men in the word. Jael, Judges 4. Sisera was pursued by the people of Israel at the request of Deborah the judge. When the Israelites came at Sisera with 10,000 men, Sisera fled. Israel was routing Sisera and his army. Sisera broke off from his men and fled alone. He came to the tent of Jael. Jael knew who Sisera was and invited him into her tent to hide. He asked for some water to drink. Jael, in her cunningly kind way, gave Sisera a bottle of milk. After enjoying his milk, like many people, he went fast to sleep. Jael sneaked into the tent with a tent peg, a piece of steel, and hammer. The scripture says that she drove the nail through the temple and pegged his head to the ground. Of course, he was dead by the time the pursuing army had found him. We know of Esther. Esther was a Jewish woman who was selected by a king to be his wife. He had banished his former wife and chose her through a contest. However, he did not know that she was a Jew or that she was a daughter of Israel. When the king's right-hand man, Haman, devised a plan to kill her people, her uncle Mordecai found out. He went to her and asked her to go before the king and asked that the family of Israel be spared. Though she was the queen, she did not have the right to lay her case before the king, her husband, without an invitation. He had not called for her presence in over a month. She knew that going before him uninvited meant the immediate death penalty. Immediately. Mordecai convinced her, Esther, that she may have been brought into the position she was by divine purpose of Jehovah to saving her people. She agreed to go before the king without an invitation, even if it meant death. By inviting the king and the wicked Haman to her house for a meal, Esther planned a way to tell the king of Haman's plot to destroy her family. She won the king's favor and invited him and Haman to her house. The next day, between the two meals, Haman grew more angry with Mordecai and the people of Israel. When Esther revealed to the king that Haman planned to kill her family, the king and Haman hung on the gallows that were built for Mordecai. We know of Abigail, 1 Samuel 25. Abigail was the wife of a wicked and self-centered man named Nabal. David, who had been anointed king but had not yet taken office, sent servants to kindly ask Nabal to show hospitality to him and his servants. David's servants had been companions and protectors of Nabal's shepherds. Nabal's response was that David was lazy and presumptuous. David, who was traveling with his men after the burial of Samuel, was angered at Nabal's reply. David prepared his men for a fight. Abigail heard what transpired between Nabal and the servants of David. She loaded up a feast and went to meet David. Along the way, she had hoped that her actions would calm David so that he would spare her family from death. David agreed to spare the family for Abigail's sake. We know of Sarah, Ruth, Miriam, that was the mother of Yahushua, Miriam of Magdalene, and Mary of Bethany, and many more women of such strength, women of faith. Yet, I want to talk about these 5 women in this one family. The grievance of Zelophehad's daughters. Because of them and their faith, it changed a law, and it was a law of inheritance. The story of the 5 daughters of Zelophehad provided legitimation of a limited right of Israelite women to inherit land. It also places specific marriage restrictions upon any women who inherit under this right. The story celebrates the boldness, at the same time offers comfort for men who have the misfortune to have no sons. Zelophehad, his meaning is really unknown, but he was a firstborn, the son of Zephyr. He was a son of Gilead, and the son of Meshir, the son of Manasseh. It was BC before 1450. He was apparently the second son of Hefer. Zelophehad came out of Egypt with Moshe, but died in the wilderness, as did the whole of that generation. We see that in Numbers 14th chapter, 35th verse, and the 27th chapter, 3rd verse is mentioned as reference. On his death without male heirs, his 5 daughters, just after the second numbering in the wilderness, came before Moshe and Eleazar to claim the inheritance of their father in the tribe of Manasseh. The claim was admitted by divine direction. And we know this in Numbers 26, 33, and 27, 1 to 11. He is a descendant of Joseph, whose death was in the wilderness. I stated he was firstborn of the tribe of the Manasseh and of the family of Gilead. Of course, he died in the wilderness. Having left no sons, his daughters concerned, lest their father's name should be done away from among his family, they made an appeal to Moshe, who, by divine direction, appointed it as a statute of judgment in Israel that daughters should inherit their father's portion when no sons were left. But the possession of Zelophehad might not pass away in the year of Jubilee from the tribe to which it belonged. It was ordained by Moshe that his daughters should not marry anyone out of their father's tribe. And this afterwards became a general law. Zelophehad's 5 daughters were Mala, which means fat or infirmity, Noah, and there's N-O''A. Sometimes you'll see it spelled N-O-A-H. It means movement. And Milha, which means queen, and Tirzah, which means pleasing. And then there was Hagla, which means dancing. And we know that Zelophehad was part of the generation of the Israelites, of Israel, who departed from Egypt under Moshe's leadership and died during the 40 years in the wilderness. And his 4 daughters belonged to the new generation that will enter and possess the promised land. Their mother is never mentioned in Scripture. According to Jehovah's decree, the promised land is to be apportioned according to the number of names of members of the second generation counted in the census recorded in Numbers 26, since only men were counted in the census. However, Zelophehad's daughters would be left without an inheritance. And also during that time, it's mentioned in Numbers 26 that when the plague was over, that was when Yehovah said to Moshe and to Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, take a census of the whole Israelite community from the age of 20 years up by their ancestral houses, all Yisrael able to bear arms. So Moshe and Eleazar, the priests on the steps of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho, gave instructions about them, namely those from 20 years up, as as Jehovah had commanded Moshe. Now, the list of these descendants is very long, and it's too long to call them out. If you want to go see that, you can read it in Numbers, the 26th chapter. And I don't even want to butcher anybody's name either. So I'm going to just tell you where you can find it. The 5 daughters of Zelophehad had a passionate love for Yisrael. The Torah traces their genealogy, like I stated before, back to Joseph, who loved the land so much that he had his brothers take an oath that his bones will go with them for burial in the holy soil. You can find that in Genesis, the 50th chapter, 25th verse. In recognition of their righteousness, Yahweh gave them the honor of being the catalyst for the pronouncement of a new chapter in the Torah, the laws of inheritance. This is similar to the passage containing the laws of Pesach Shani, the second Pesach offering, which was brought by people who were unable to bring the first one, 9th chapter, 6 to 14th verse. This mitzvah that would have been in the Torah in any case was initiated because of people who longed for it. Few honors can be comparable to that of being the vehicle for the revelation of Jehovah's word. After hearing that only men were counted in preparation for the distribution of the land, these women complained that because they had no brothers, their family would be without a share. And they said the compassion of the omnipresent is not comparable to the compassion of human beings. A human being might have more compassion for males, but he whose word brought the world into being is different. His compassion is both male and female. His compassion is for all. And when verse 3 is stated that, but he was not among the assembly, the daughters contended that their father did not deserve to lose the privilege of having his family share in the land, because he had not joined any of the rebellions that disputed the authority of Yahweh or Moshe, since the sin for which he had died had been committed as an individual, and no one is immune from sin. It was not of such a magnitude as to justify the loss of his portion of the land. So from verse 6 to 11 goes into the laws of inheritance. The passage ascertains that the daughters were right and they were to receive their late father's share in the land, and then goes on to establish their legal right to it by setting forth the laws of inheritance. The daughters of Zelophehad speak properly. This is the highest praise of the 5 sisters. Abba said that their holy intuition saw what Moshe himself could not see, that they were entitled to their father's portion. Praiseworthy is a person with whom Abba concurs. And you shall cause to pass over. Instead of using the verb give, as in verses 9, 10, and 11, which speaks of male inheritance, here the Torah uses the term pass over because the inheritance of a woman can have a result that man's does not. If she were to marry a man from a tribe other than her father's, and then be inherited by her husband or sons who are citizens of a tribe other than her father's, the effect would be that the title to her property would pass over from her original tribe to the new one. Thus, her tribe as a community would lose land. Indeed, in chapter 36, this problem was raised by Zelophehad's tribe of Manasseh. In verse 9, it said, to his brothers. Nowhere in the passage does the Torah speak explicitly that a father is an heir. But it is derived that a father's right to inheritance is second only to that of a husband and children. So in this verse, the deceased brother inherits only if the father is no longer living. In verse 11, it says, of his family. And this means the deceased paternal line. Thus, the heir would be the closest relative or relatives. As a decree of justice, the term implies that the above laws are permanent, even though they have been promulgated in response to the immediate plea of Zelophehad's daughters. They were not a temporary solution, but an eternal decree of justice. It is further understood from this expression that a father may not alter the Torah's procedure of inheritance. Although one may make a gift of his property during his lifetime, in which case it is no longer his, and the laws of inheritance will not only apply at the time of his death, but one who has not done so does not have the power to tailor his will in a way that will contradict the Torah's law. In other words, you can give somebody a gift of anything you want while you're living. And it is a bound thing. It is done. Nobody can't come take it from you, nothing. However, at the time of your death and so forth, then there's a different set of laws that are to take place. And it's those laws of inheritance. And no one has the power to tailor his will in a way that will contradict the Torah's law. The daughters came forward to appeal this regulation, stating their case in front of the sacred tent of meeting, in the presence of Moshe, Eleazar, the priests, the leaders, and indeed, really, the whole entire community. They argued that their father's name, and with the name, when they say father's name, naturally they say the lineage, should not be cut off from his clan just because he had no son. And that they should have been permitted to inherit this land portion in order to avoid this potential injustice to their father's name and property. So we know that name means the lineage, his line. One thing is worse in the world is have somebody's family name just stop. A culture that recognizes a connection between land holding and preservation of a male name in a family lineage. Moshe consults Abba, and Abba announces the decision to Moshe. The proposal of the daughters was to be implemented. But the text moves beyond the particular case to report Yehovah's further generalized regulation for order of inheritance. That when he said, when there are no sons, daughters shall have first inheritance rights, followed by other male relatives in a set sequence. That is from 8 to 11. And it says, if a man die and has no son, you shall cause his inheritance to pass over to his daughter. If he has no daughter, you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, you shall give his inheritance to the brothers of his father. If there are no brothers of his father, you shall give his inheritance to his relative who is closest to him of his family, and he shall inherit it. This is decree of justice. This is the way, even now, how wills should be set up. with the Yahweh's statement, Yahweh does three important things. First, he states that these women are just in their requests. Second, he not only gives the women their father's land so that his name is not lost, but Abba actually gives them their father's land as a hereditary holding. They not only receive the piece of land, but they are also allowed to give the land to their offspring as an inheritance. That's an important move, to keep it within the family, to keep it within the community. In addition to helping these 5 sisters, Abba makes this decree a law for securing the same rights for other women through all, A-L-L, all generations. The male relatives of the Manasseh clan, to which Zelophehad belonged, recognize what to them appears to be a large loophole in this ruling. Their appeal to Moshe is recorded in Numbers 36, and this is what it states. And the heads of the father's household, of the family, of the sons of Gilead, the son of Mehir and the son of Manasseh, of the families of the sons of Joseph, came near and spoke before Moshe and before the leaders, the heads of the father's household of the sons of Israel. And they said, Yehovah commanded, my Lord, to give the land by lot to the sons of Yisrael as an inheritance. And my Lord was commanded by Yehovah to give the inheritance of Zelophehad, our brother, to his daughters. The male relatives point out that when the daughters of Zelophehad get married, the land that they have inherited will go with them to the clans of their husbands. The possibility that a man might change clans in such a case was beyond Israel's imagining. The relatives are concerned that the marriage of any of the daughters outside of their own tribe would lead to decrease or reduction of the Manasseh landholdings. Moshe announces that Yahweh does not intend any moving of land from tribe to tribe, and an insurance against such movement, the daughters of Zelophehad and any other daughters who inherit land must marry within the clan of their father's tribe. This was talking about the inconvenience of the inheritance. The chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, being the tribal governors in Manasseh, they consulted Moshe on a case that affected the public honor and interest of their tribe. It related once more to the daughters of Zelophehad. Formerly, they had applied at their own instance to be recognized for want of male heirs in their family as entitled to inherit their father's property. Now the application was made on behalf of the tribe to which they belong, that steps might be taken to prevent the alienation of their patrimony by their alliance, with husbands of another tribe. The unrestricted marriages of daughters in such circumstances threaten seriously to affect the tenure of land in Yisrael, as their inheritance will go to their children, who by the father's side will belong to another tribe, and thus lead through a complication of interests and the confusion of families to an evil for which even the Jubilee could not afford a remedy. The heads of the tribe of Manasseh represent the evil which might follow if the daughters should marry into any other tribe. They sought to preserve the divine appointment of inheritances, and that contests and quarrels should not rise among those who should come afterwards. It is the wisdom and duty of those who have estates in the world to settle them and to dispose of them, so that no strife and contention may rise. So Abba had never intended for any movement on the land from tribe to tribe. So this was like, I believe it's like an addendum to what was already there, to make sure it was secure that the whole intention of the laws of inheritance was in effect and understood. Because as we come to see that they were really concerned that when the Jubilee year came around, that the land which was intended as an inheritance for Manasseh will be permanently lost to another tribe. This was because the land had commanded, I'm tongue twisted today. This was because that Yehovah had commanded that every 50th year, the Jubilee year, that all land that had exchanged hands be reverted to the family to which it had belonged to before the transition. And you see that in Leviticus 25th chapter, 11th verse. And Moshe took the problem to Yehovah and announced that the tribe of the sons of Joseph have said well. 36:5 of Numbers. He explained that the solution of Yahweh had given him was that the daughters of Zelophehad should marry to whom they think best. Only to the family of the tribe of their father shall they marry. So shall not the inheritance of the children of Yisrael remove from tribe to tribe, for every one of the children of Yisrael shall keep himself to the inheritance of the tribe of his fathers. Yahweh also commanded that any daughter who inherited from her father was obligated to choose a husband from among her same tribe, so that the inheritance would stay within the tribe. That way there was less argument, no wars, no conflict of interest, none of that. So the daughters of Zelophehad obeyed Moshe's counsel, and they each married their cousins so that their inheritance remained in the tribe of the far family of their father. So when the time came for Joshua to divide up the land into inheritances for each tribe, the daughters of Zelophehad again approached Eleazar, the high priest, Joshua and the princes, and reminded them that Yehovah had commanded Moshe to give them an inheritance among our brethren. Joshua 17th chapter 4th verse. Accordingly, Joshua gave each daughter 2 portions of land, making a total of 10 portions, because their father was the firstborn son and thus entitled to a double portion. And since I am a daughter who was firstborn, that I am entitled to a double portion. I love that already. Their inheritance was beside the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were on the other side Jordan, and the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. So you see that the daughters did marry within their clan and received their inheritance. We don't know how old these young women were, but they were probably fairly young, because at the time they approached Moshe, they were unmarried, and women in the old covenant or during that time usually married around 14 or 15. So it was probably the oldest daughter was probably around the age, was around that age, or she could have been younger. But it is also likely that they had been born while children of Yisrael wandered in the wilderness. According to tradition, during this time, these daughters did not expect to receive an inheritance from their father after he died. And in the women's rights in Old Testament times, is one day after their father's death, according to Jewish tradition, or after Yesrael's tradition, Moshe was discussing a Levirate marriage within the daughter's hearing. It occurred to them that if a childless widow could preserve her husband's name through an heir provided by Levirate marriage, an heir who would inherit the deceased husband's lands, justice demanded that a way be found to preserve the name of an honorable man who had only daughters. If daughters could inherit these lands, they could thus preserve his name and thereby honor him. They faced an additional incentive, for as a firstborn son, Zelophehad would have himself received a double portion from his father. Another thought why the chiefs of Manasseh approached Moshe with their concern about what would happen to the daughters of Zelophehad's inheritances when they married was possible that one of them was approaching marriageable age. And you see, they married younger at that time. They married young. And the obedience of these daughters on the council of Moshe's council, it showed they would follow the prophet and Yahweh, even when it was hard. Now, this was a true testimony of faith, because these 5 daughters considered themselves as left destitute, having neither father nor brother to inherit any land. Their believing expectation that the word of Yahuwah would be performed in due season, and their desire of an interest in the promised inheritance, and the modest, candid manner in which they asked, without secret murmurs or discontents, were good examples. They acted properly. They asked for a possession in the land of Canaan. Herein, we also discovered a strong faith in the power and promise of Yahuwah concerning the giving of the land of Canaan to Israel. An earnest desire of a place and name in the land of promise, which was a type of heaven. Respect and honor for their father, whose name was dear to them now he was gone. He never had done anything that might bar his children's claim. The text reflects about these women. First, note that these women knew their law and history. They used the fact that their father was not involved in Korah's rebellion. Korah's rebellion, you can read about that in Numbers 16th chapter. It was that power struggle. As evidence to the support, his and their claim to the land, they know that the continuity of family name depends on inheritance of the land, and they realize that the current law is not adequate, for it does not take into account the unusual circumstances of a man without sons. They could possess the acumen to recognize this omission in Yahweh's law. But because they consider his law to be just, they show no hesitation in pointing out the unfair nature of the present situation with complete confidence and supporting their claim with compelling arguments. Can you see these 5 sisters deciding to have a law firm? They probably would win many cases. I would hire them. They are encouragement for me. They encourage me. So we know how he acts. Moshe reacts. Moses brought their case before Yehovah. And then Moshe disclosed his inability to assess the claims of these sisters. He takes the case to Yehovah, who responds by unequivocally supporting the sisters' demand, and even by formulating or decreeing a new and permanent law to secure inheritance for any daughters in such circumstances. Thus, these sisters claim leads to the law of inheritance being changed forever. The key to the sisters' success is their full awareness of Yehovah's laws and the people's history and story. They insist on change by engaging Yisrael traditions effectively, something even the sages recognize when they describe the women. These women daughters were wise. Hahamot, Chamot. It's probably Hahamut. They were astute interpreters. Darshanyot, Darshanyot. Forgive me if I'm butchering these words. I am learning how to pronounce a lot of these. And they were pious. Rashmanyut, Rachmanyot. Wise because they spoke in the precise moment when the decision was issued. Interpreters because they in essence says, if our father had a son, we would not have spoken because he would have the inheritance. And pious because they did not want to marry men who were not worthy. Hello, that's a lesson right there. Now, there's 3 other lessons that we can learn about this. And they had faith and they had trusted, come on, in Yehovah's provision for them. They were single women. They could have played the victim card and cried about being more orphans and, no brothers, no land, and all that other stuff. They could have gone from tent to tent complaining. They could have rushed into marriage to solve their problem, but they did not. They were noble, godly women who trusted that Yehovah would provide for them and were willing to courageously step outside their comfort zone to see this happen. They trust the leadership of Moshe and Abba to be gracious and just, and because of their faith, they were protected against fear. See, fear can't rise up in you when you have faith. It's when your faith starts getting dwindled, goes down, you start having anxiety attacks, you start doubting everything that's going on, you start causing drama and all like that. That's your lack of faith. And because of their faith, they were protected against fear. We must not run from things that are hard, especially when we know we are doing the right thing. Second thing, they did not live for the present. They had faith in Abba's promises of a land to come. How many times have you received a word and a promise from him and realized that you can't live in the present, that you have to start planning for the future because of a promise and a word that was given to you of something that was going to take place? Where is your faith? This land these women were asking for, they had never seen it. In chapter 26, the promised land was being divided amongst the people. The generation that went before them were fearful about entering the promised land. And as a consequence, they all died in the wilderness and did not get to enter the promised land. the daughters of Zelophehad believed in a land to come. They believed it was good and they wanted an inheritance there. Abba himself gives judgment. He takes notice of the affairs, not only of nations, but of private families, and orders them according to his will. The petition was granted to them. The achievement of Zelophehad's daughters was a landmark in women's rights regarding the inheritance of land from those days up to now. In addition, this life of these 5 women offers strong lessons for all those who believe that their ordinary, how can I put this? Their destiny is not, your destiny is not fixed. And that divine justice has not abandoned you. This should encourage us to think in a different way whenever we are faced with obstacles. Let us take hold of life with our hands, move from a place that the others have given us, or we have decided to keep because we feel immobile, and walk even to the most holy center where nobody seems to be able to go. Dare to move, flow. Nothing is more sacred than life itself and the fight for what we believe is worthy. When we believe in our own capacity to shape our own history to the point of being able to change even a law that came from the revelation at Sinai, we honor the Zelophehad's daughters. And see, it also changed that law that we were not supposed to have anything. So there should be no woman out here that should not have some kind of piece of the land. Be it inheritance or you purchase it yourself. And if you can have more, then what's that saying used to be? 40 acres in a mule. If we can get that without the mule, but the land is the thing, then we have obtained our laws of inheritance from Abba and even from our fathers here on earth. So I am really honored by this teaching of these women of faith. So it is time for us to start encouraging ourselves in some kind of way, make a goal to what we're trying to do so that we can think in a different way, and we're faced with these obstacles. We understand that we can learn to have a strategic plan or something to do to move them out of the way, to solve the problem. But I am so honored to know about these 5 sisters. They have such strength. Such women of faith. Abba, for I have given unto them the words which thou gavest me, and they have received them. And my prayer is that for all of my sisters that are here, that they have gleaned from this field and that their faith has increased. And that they know what it is that in faith that they are protected against fear. And Father, as they go forth in their everyday life, and that they will be able to, since they have gleaned from this field, we thank you for all that you have done for us for this. In Yahushua's precious name. And Yahweh, he who exists, will kneel before you, presenting gifts, and will guard you with a hedge of protection. Yahweh, he who exists, will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards you, bringing order, and he will provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahweh, he who exists, will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon you, and he will set in place all you need to be whole and complete. And so shall we put his name upon the children of Yashael, and he will bless them. And this comes from Numbers 6, chapter 24 to 27. And Amen, Amen. And it is so. And I am your host, Shelly Janet E. Brown. And this here is the episode of CHAYAH. And the episode is Women of Faith. And I hope that you have learned something today. And I really, really hope that this has encouraged you, because it has certainly encouraged me. And thank you again for joining. Looking forward to sharing the next teaching with you. And shalom, shalom.